Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles. In today's episode, I'm interviewing Mikey, a collector who focuses primarily on basketball and football cards. He's got some great tips on how to make money flipping football cards, and also tells us what it's like being a younger collector in today's landscape. He's got some great stories along the way, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And don't forget to check out howtocollectcards.com, a website I created dedicated to helping collectors of all skill levels build their collections. Feeling like you just don't know where to begin, you don't know what all these different things mean within the hobby, I've created this dictionary and I'm giving it away completely free. It has over 120 terms, all the terms that you need to know to get started collecting cards. We're also offering an advanced training course that is comprised of 17 different parts, everything from learning what cards you should be focused on buying for yourself, what cards are worth, where to buy the cards, when to buy cards to save yourself the most money, how to avoid different mistakes within the hobby that a lot of people make. It's just got everything that you need to be successful collecting cards, so please check that out. We've also got a bunch of new bonus content, and any new content that I create for the training course gets added for free. So if you've bought the course already, you're going to get all that new content, and it's free for life. I'm going to keep adding stuff to it. There's always going to be new content helping everyone. So please check it out. It's really extensive. It's got tons of great information. I think it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. All right, everyone. This is Mikey. How's it going, man?
It's going good, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem. We've been chatting recently on Instagram quite a bit, and I'm excited to have you on.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about a couple of things we've been mentioning.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in the hobby.
So I'm 20. I've been collecting for roughly 9 or 10 years now. I started back in, when I was in middle school. I had a friend who was really into cards. He had, looking back on it, Curry National Treasures RPAs and Anthony Davis RPAs back when we were like 12 or 13, but they weren't really worth much back then. They were only like, maybe $100 to $200 cards back in like 2010. So we used to get all that, and I always go to his house and I'd be like, who would pay any money for these cards? It's just cardboard with ink on it, and you're paying like $100, $200, which to 10-year-old me was a big deal back then. And then slowly I'm like, oh, I started realizing, oh, he's making some decent money, just buying them, going to shows and, flipping. He wasn't even on, this was before, Instagram was really big with cards, or Instagram was really big at all, or Facebook was really big at cards. So he would just go to shows, buy and sell what he wanted, just the players. And slowly I started getting into it with him because, I had a friend in the hobby. And we did it together for maybe 4 or 5 years, just going to shows, buying and selling, just picking up things we liked. And it's turned into a sort of competition amongst friends where he would get something cool, like, oh, look at the Jordan auto I just got. I'm like, damn, now I got to go find something that's better than that. So it was really fun. And those were like the good years of me collecting. And I really enjoyed, that was when I really just, I just get players I liked. I was a big Clipper fan back then. I still am a really big Clipper fan, but big into Chargers. So I just pick up a ton of Clippers and Chargers when they were just garbage teams. So that's how I started out collecting, thinking it was the stupidest thing in the world that anybody would pay money for cards. And then, I slowly started to get into it. He's since left the hobby. But I just continue on. I think it's like, just really fun. Gives me something to do in my spare time.
So you haven't stopped at all?
I've taken brief, like 2-month breaks saying like, oh, I'm going to get out of the hobby, focus on, I'm a physics major at my school. So focus really on physics. But, every time it just kind of slowly lures me back in.
Right.
After like a month or two, I'm like, I got to get back in. Oh, there's a really good deal. Got to buy that.
So you're always just kind of checking eBay and keeping up with the values and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. Especially because, I'm always watching sports. So I'll see like Durant will drop like, 50-point game, or Harden will drop a 50-point game. So I'll be like, oh, let me go check eBay. See like see if anybody just hit some bins.
Right. So what have you evolved into today? What are you focused on now?
So I mainly do a lot of, basketball and football stuff. That's kind of the sports I like to watch. I never really got into watching baseball. My roommates trying to get me into, being a huge Yankee fan lately. So I'm slowly watching the Yankees and becoming a baseball fan. But I always used to play baseball and I was so bad at it. So basketball and football were always the sports I kind of gravitated to. So only because I know more about those do I collect football and basketball, but my friends are slowly trying to in the hobby are trying to get me into Bowman Chrome because Bowman Chrome baseball prospecting, even though I'm at going and kicking and screaming.
That one's pretty risky, right? I mean, what have you seen so far?
It's just like it's so weird. I mean, I guess if you could do like some data analytics, it's not bad. Like if you could follow the stats and everything, you'd be like, okay, this guy's hitting, 330 or whatever in single A. His cards are now worth $1,000, and I'll never understand that. But I mean, if you could spend a significant amount of time and really watch the players you try to invest in, I've been told. Listen, I don't know really much about it, but I've been told it's a really easy way to flip and invest and make money.
Then you have to be on top of it like almost daily, right? Like the second they
Yeah,
get to the majors, you have to sell and
yeah, it's a process. The second they get called up, like, oh, flip now. It's a bit more intensive than I'd want to go into cards. I kind of use buying and selling cards as a stress reliever, and
right.
things I could do outside of school and work that I could just be like, okay, I could just hold this card and I know it's not going to go down at all. So like cards, like Tim Duncan, Topps Chrome refractors and stuff like that. Stuff that I have on my PC that's just I know it's not going to go down. I'm just holding for investments.
Yeah, so what other stuff are you holding on to right now?
So I'm really looking for more of these, like Topps Chrome, Durant, not Durant, Tim Duncan refractors. I think they're really low right now compared to if you look at like Kobe's and Dirks and even LeBron James refractors. If you think of all the people who have like really expensive refractors like Giannis, LeBron, Kobe, Curry, even Harden's getting up there now. Tim Duncan is just so criminally undervalued for what his refractors bring. Try to get more Durant Topps Chrome refractors. I'm trying to get some PSA 9s. I just got this 9.5 pretty cheap the other day. I'll try to get more of these too. I think Breeze is like the best buy you can get in football right now. I think his stuff is so cheap for being one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Like I think I bought this for $600 and it's a refractor PSA 9. The Brady's of these sell around maybe 5,000. So
He saw a pretty big surge this last year in prices, right?
yeah, that was actually a cool story. I went to the National last year. It was so fun. It was my first time going, but I went around looking for Breeze. I'm like, why are Breeze stuff so low? And nobody had any Breeze stuff, but I was able to find like 3 or 4 of these refractors, and I bought them for like maybe $100 a piece. And everyone was telling me like, why are you buying these? Like they're just refractor Breeze. Like they're not really worth anything. And I think like 2 weeks after I got back from the National, they jumped up to like $700 a piece. Back now they're a little bit less, but that was because of the playoff spike. But I think they're going to get back up there, especially if inevitably they get back to the playoffs this year. People are going to start realizing like, oh, why is Breeze rookie stuff so cheap?
And he's like breaking all kinds of records seemingly like every week.
Yeah, he just I don't know why. I think they got robbed that last playoff game, but I think they could definitely make it to the Super Bowl again this year. I think his people are gonna start realizing like he's got almost Brady level potential when it comes to the hobby.
Yeah, he's just not winning the championships. It's really the only difference.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's won one Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah.
That was a bit before I started watching football a lot. Personally, I love to get these like these 1933 like the older vintage cards. I got this
Oh wow.
Gehrig. Um, it's just cool because I like having them on my mantle, and when my friends come over like parties and they know nothing about cards, they can be like, "Wow, is this made in 1933?" And I get to impress my friends. So that's just
It's
one of the couple things I get.
1.5. Kiki would be so disappointed.
I know. I just try to get higher grades, but they get expensive, exponentially.
No,
The
I
more.
meant like, Kiki collects the PSA ones.
Oh no, no, I
Yeah,
don't know.
there's a guy that I interviewed and he collects PSA ones of like historical cards. So 1.5 is like way too nice for him.
Yeah, I kind of like the fact that it's got like the rounded edges. It just shows that it's been like worn throughout the centuries, and I kind of like that actually. I wouldn't want. I mean, I take a 6, but I don't know. I kind of like the ones and twos. I feel like they show character.
Yeah, for sure. It makes more sense. Like how could a card gotten that far, in perfect condition? It's not possible.
Yeah, it's like you wonder what the story is. Did like someone just take it out of a pack in like 1940 and just put it in a? They didn't have card protectors, so what they do?
Right, for sure. Why don't you tell us about the show that you just went to? I saw on Instagram that you set up at a show. How was
Oh,
that?
I didn't set up. I just walked around, but
Oh, okay.
it was a local show. It was my first time going, so it was pretty interesting. I love going to shows. I just love the atmosphere, just walking around and just like this, just cards everywhere. It's like my ultimate vacation. Like when I went to the National, it was like it was my time. It was the ultimate vacation. So I loved it. I got to stay. You know, it's weird because there's nobody in my life that I really talk cards with. So when I get a chance to hang around people who just know as much, even more than me, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air.
What kind of cards were you picking up while you were there?
Oh, at the National, I was just getting everything. I got one card I missed that I sold that I really wanted. I got I think it was an old Mickey Mantle, Ken Griffey Jr. autograph. I'm trying to think of the year. I think it was may have been 1993, 1994. I don't remember the year, but it's the horizontal dual autographs. They've since gone up a lot, and I got it really cheap at the National. I think I moved it for like $600 more than I paid for it, but that was a card I wish I had kept.
So how much of your time is spent flipping, trying to make money in cards, and then cards that you're focused on keeping for your PC? What's your balance there?
That's a good question. I would say that I'd say I lean more towards flipping because then I get money for my PC because I'm in college and I don't really have a job yet, so I can't really take the income from that and put it towards investing in PC. So if I want money to buy PC cards, I kind of have to focus more on flipping. So I'd say it's roughly like maybe 65-70% flipping and then like 30% looking for newer things to invest in.
Is there anything in your PC that's just like locked down forever, or are you constantly kind of evolving and moving around?
Been a few things that have been locked down that I thought were locked down. There's this one card that I bought that I told somebody I'd never move, and I think it's true. It's the Dadian Tomlinson Jim Brown dual autograph 9510. It's not a huge card. It's maybe like 300, 350, but I'm a huge LT fan. I grew up a huge Chargers fan back in 2009, 2008, and I just love that card so much. I got so much like around my room, like autographed LT, autographed Chargers stuff. So that's a card I just love because I also love Jim Brown stuff. I don't think it's a card I'll ever move, even if I got like a $600 offer on it. I don't, which is like double the price.
Right.
I don't think I'd ever move it.
Yeah, I think the thing that new people coming into the hobby sort of get lost on is like you can't really successfully flip or make money if you don't actually care about the cards and you don't have stuff that you actually like. It's hard to get interest in something and then just come in and flip and move out. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you're totally right. I think that's the biggest issue. People come into the hobby and they're like, "Oh, what's the best way to make money?" And I always say it's, just any card you buy, be happy if that card never sells. So every card I own, at least pretty much every card I own, if it went to $0 tomorrow, I wouldn't really. I mean, I'd care, but I'd be happy having it at the price I paid for it. So even if all my Deshaun Watson Prism Silver rookies went to $10 tomorrow, I'd still really love having them because I really I like the artwork behind the cards. I think people always tell me like, why do you spend so much money on cards? It's like it's art. That's what it is in the end. That's why people pay like $30,000-$40,000 for cards. You see like cards that get big, it's the design behind them. So I would like them just for display purposes and knowing that I'm happy with any card I buy.
Nice. I haven't had a lot of football talk on here, so I'm kind of interested into what other football cards you're buying. Like what do you focus on, and what's like the hot thing right now in football?
So I'd say the hots. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like basketball in a sense, where Prism Silvers are the big cards. If you look at like Baker Mayfield Prism Silvers, PSA 10s can fetch like up to $1,000. I'm buying, I think we talked about this a bit, a ton of Deshaun Watson Silvers right now. I think I got like 9 or 10 PSA 10s and a couple more raw ones on the way. But I think his stuff is super low right now. He's such a consistent QB, and he's really good. His team just always, they kind of drop the ball in the playoffs or right before. but he's always been a like statistically great QB. I was buying a lot of Mahomes silvers back when they were really cheap because football's really easy in the sense that a lot of it just goes way down in the offseason and then kind of spikes up right before the preseason. So if you can kind of just focus in on that and be a little bit patient, you can buy a lot of football like National Treasures, Contenders, Prisms. They all hold value pretty well and similar to basketball. And you can get them pretty cheap in the offseason and just flip right around August.
The thing that confuses me about football, it's like only about the quarterbacks. Can you talk about why that is, and is that true?
Yeah, I guess that kind of is true. Every running back I see that's come out of a product in the past 5 years or so, they don't really hold value as much. I mean, this is kind of true with any product. It's always hot when it first comes out and then drops a little in value. But running backs, for some reason, they don't hold as well or go up to the level that quarterbacks do. I guess because if you look at historical, if you look at running backs, who are like some of the best running backs of all time, Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, Adrian Peterson, who was so like big in the hobby for so long, Barry Sanders, all those people, they sign a lot. So their autographs aren't worth a lot, I think, because of that. And I think people kind of just follow that and assuming that, running backs will never have long-term value, which I can kind of get, seeing that, the big Hall of Famer guys sign a ton and their autographs aren't worth a lot. But I think running backs are starting to pick back up. You see like Saquon Barkley holds pretty good hobby value.
Yeah, it's interesting because I came into football just sort of enjoying the cards themselves, and I really like Todd Gurley. So I was buying like
So good.
really nice Todd Gurley stuff for like I have like his gold prism rookie, and I paid like $40, and it's like
Yeah, it's
this is
it's
like
so
a
crazy.
multi-$1,000 card in basketball, but Todd Gurley is like so cheap.
I guess like the only thing I can compare it to is centers don't necessarily sell as well in basketball for some weird reason.
Yeah,
Um, so I think I could compare it to that where like point guards or shooting guards or forwards will always sell better than centers. So I think that's why quarterback. I think quarterbacks also they get more of the limelight. They're more like crucial, even though I'd say Todd Gurley is a better overall like person to that team than Jared Goff is.
right. Yeah, it's interesting to watch from afar. I mean, I also thought like I am a big fantasy football player, and I know like a ton of people play fantasy football, and I always thought cards would be like a cool way to bridge, coming from fantasy football. And in fantasy football, it's all about receivers and running backs. So I thought
Yeah,
like people
it
would have
is
a
weird.
stronger connection to that through the cards, but I don't know.
Yeah, I always have to remind myself when I do fantasy, and I look at the value of these players. I'm like, oh my God, Todd Gurley's like the number one pick in pretty much every league. Or Todd Gurley, or you get Saquon Barkley, or all these people who put up the most fantasy points. Back in the day, when it was Calvin Johnson, you always wanted to draft Megatron.
Right.
You always have to switch your set, like, okay, what's happening in like the outside world, even the real world, people who are really good doesn't always translate to hobby value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I since we started talking, I've been buying some of the quarterbacks and kind of watching what you're doing just to jump in and have some fun with football. It's definitely a lot different than basketball, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's more fun because when your guy does well, I just find it really well because feel really fun because investing in that off season and then I like to hold. I don't think we think a little bit differently here, but I like to hold a little bit into the season, even though the risk for injury is a little bit more. Um, I think it's really cool when your guy, especially like Mahomes last year. I did that with Mahomes before he went off. I had a couple optic contenders that I graded and sold, and I found I get really excited when I'm like, oh wow, like that investment's gonna pay off.
And he just like exploded, right? Those first 4 weeks.
Yeah, he had such a phenomenal second season. It was kind of his, I don't want to say rookie season because he didn't get a ton of action his rookie year, but his second year he just absolutely killed it. I think, and his card market similarly, like I said earlier, goes down in the off season, and once they go to like the playoffs, they're gonna spike back up again. So, if anybody wants to make any money, just buy football in the off season.
Right. Can you speak to just being like a younger person in the hobby? I'm just talking to you so far. It seems like it's not really much of a, there's not really much of a difference in today's modern card collecting. It seems like the younger person has just as much, if not more, knowledge in the hobby. So can you just speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been, going around the shows as a younger person. I'm only 20 years old now, but back when I was doing this when I was like 15, 16, I'd have, I'd go up to tables with like $1,000 to $2,000 cards, and people would look at me, kind of half weird, like, "Are you smart? Do you know what you're doing? Or are you just getting like money from dad? Like, how are you doing this?" And I think people end up respecting you a little bit more when they see you so young. But I think that's kind of an issue in the hobby now. Is there's a ton of like, especially if you look at the Instagram world, there's so many young people out there, way younger and with way better cards than I started out when I started. And I don't think a lot of the older people know how to handle, oh, they're 13, oh, they're 14. But I think it's a refreshing fact knowing that there's a big wave of younger people coming in the hobby. And I find that most times they end up being more mature than a lot of the adults I meet on here.
Also, I get the feeling that people perceive the younger crowd as just like the flippers, the Instagram buy sellers. Is that true, or do you feel like they also have like a strong knowledge about the cards and a passion for it?
I would say a lot of them, like if you look, they do pretty much the same thing I do, where they have collections. I think a lot of them do get in it for the incentive the incentive of money. They can get in like, oh, $200 to a high school student is a lot more than $200 to a guy with a full-time job. And I could definitely speak to that. When I was in high school and I sold a card and made like $200, I was like, oh my god, this is like, I could go out for food for like 4 months now. This is like pizza for 4 months. So it was always good on that end. So I just I don't know. I think high schoolers, they tend to be more, I don't know, because there's good and bad. Because the scammers, at the adult level, and the scammers at the teenage level. But I find that the kids I meet are good kids, and they value the cards they have, and they're like, oh, I don't want to move it. Like half the kids I meet, they're like, oh, I don't want to move that one. Like it's tough to trade with them.
So it's almost like they come in seeing the money and then they stay for the cards and the fun, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely agree with that sentiment. You know, I know a lot of them with just, you look at their personal collections and you think they're a millionaire. They got just insane PCs because, they know how to hustle. And I respect it. I respect 15, 16-year-olds out there, hustling to make some money.
Yeah, I think it's easier for someone like me to criticize a teenager for only focusing on flipping, but like to be honest, like you kind of have to, right? Like you don't, like you said, you don't have a ton of money, you don't have jobs, so you kind of have to hustle and figure things out and kind of finagle things, right, to get to where you need to get, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, if I'm graduating in a year, and I'm so excited to look forward to hopefully, an income to where I can, put some of that towards cards, and I can, focus hopefully less on flipping and more towards, investing and keeping cards I really want. But yeah, you're totally right. People, especially in high school and college, I'm paying for my master's with some of the profits I get through cards. So, it's definitely, we kind of need to do it. I think it's quintessential the hobby, and I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it. There's a way to do it right, and there's a way to do it wrong. And I feel like a lot of the people, when they say, "Oh, like he's just a flipper, he's like ruining the hobby," I don't agree with that sentiment at all. And I feel like there's a way to do it right. Where you can, be respectful to everyone and give good deals, but just get cards cheaper. And I think there's definitely a wrong way of doing it too.
What's the wrong way?
The wrong ways, like, swindling, hustle, doing things kind of shady, where, you'll purposely sell someone an overmarket card. Like anytime I sell a person a card, I hope they make money off of me. I really do. Um, People who they'll sell a card, they'll be like, I just, I got that sucker over there. That's definitely the wrong way to do it. I feel like people forget the best business model, and the way to get people to come back and buy things from you is to just be a nice guy, hope that, they can get as much profit as you did, hopefully.
And I think most people see flipping as, I found someone on eBay that had it way underpriced and they screwed up, and then I sold it like the next day for more. But flipping is a lot more than just that one specific case, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more than that. I For example, like I bought a couple like Giannis Prism rookie autos for around PSA 10s for around $700, and I just waited like a month. I would say that's less of an investment and more towards a flip in that sense. And they were around, $1,200, $1,300. I sold them too cheap, but you know, that's what I'd consider more flipping, where everyone's happy in that situation. It's just being smart and knowing what you can flip and when and where to make the most amount of money.
For sure. So we're buying football now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer buying football. Maybe what is it, May? Maybe like a month or two ago. I think that
Okay.
was, if you look at like Prism Silver Mahomes PSA 10s, they were pulling like 130, 140 like 2 months ago. Yeah, I'm sure you got a couple of Mahomes Silvers.
I
They
only
were
have
pulling like
a couple. Yeah.
they were pulling like 130, 140 like 2 months ago. Now they're starting to push 200, 215 on eBay all day. So I think maybe a month or two ago was the time to buy football, but I think you can still get some players like Watson pretty cheap because, everyone's like, oh, who did really well last year? Like Mahomes, obviously Brady always picks back up when the season comes around. But I think you could still snag some players who people are overlooking.
So what
Like
about
Gurley,
me?
I think Gurley is a good buy.
I mean, he's super cheap right now with how horrible he was in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And he always just puts up insanely good numbers.
What about Baker Mayfield? Just talk about him and what he's bringing to the hobby. What kind of excitement he has for new collectors? Like, what's the hype around Baker right now?
I honestly I like him. I don't understand his market or his hype at all. I mean, I think people just love the fact that he was a rookie and he came in and made the world's most garbage team, the Browns, and brought them to, I think they were 8-8 or something like that, which is like an okay season. It's not that great at all. But I think they like the promise of, oh, he's a young stud coming in with like a new franchise. They like that, like the Phoenix rising from the ashes of the shitty Browns.
Plus, he's like an energetic, fun, like young guy. Like he's just
Yeah,
like
he's got that energy to him.
he's trying to plant flags into turf fields and stuff. Like he's
Yeah, I definitely like him. I think he's pulling that, the same thing that happened with Andrew Luck. When he first came out in 2012, his National Treasures RPAs and his contenders were just so high, and they dropped since. But I think that's kind of what's going to happen to him, where you wait 2 or 3 years down the line, and people are going to realize like, oh, he's good, but he's not like Tom Brady good.
so his
Like,
luck is his stuff coming back up now that he's
well, it's definitely coming back up from when he was injured like 2 or 3 years ago. Like that's what think it hit all time low, but it's starting to make a bounce back. The thing is, they just never really go far in the playoffs, far enough to really like if Luck won a Super Bowl, his stuff would skyrocket. But that's why I think players like Russell Wilson are so undervalued, because think about what especially his first 2 or 3 years in the league. His first year in the league, he won like a divisional championship. Second year, won a Super Bowl. Third year, made it to the Super Bowl. I think lost, but they've consistently been a playoff team and a Super Bowl winning team. And he's such a young QB, and I honestly have no idea why. Like people outsell him when he's so good.
yeah. I mean, that's similar in basketball too. It's like Baker Mayfield, Mahomes, and these Watson, these younger guys are more expensive than someone like Russell Wilson, who's more established. He's won a Super Bowl. It's just kind of like the way it goes in the hobby. People like buying potential more than success.
Yeah, it's weird. If you look at someone like Klay Thompson, right? He's multi-time like NBA championship winner, one of the best shooters in the league. Has insane promise, max contract player. And if you look at this, you can get a Klay Thompson rookie auto for 30, $40. Meanwhile, like try finding a Luka Doncic auto that cheap.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then it's always the same thing though. Like those rookies always eventually come back down unless they turn into some generational type player.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what happened with Tatum last year, and that's why I tend to stay away from basketball prism stuff, or even basketball in general, because it's the same thing every year. Look at people like Tatum and Mitchell, who are good players. They're not bad,
Right.
but I feel like it's the same thing as Doncic. He's an okay player, had similar rookie seasons to Tatum and Mitchell, and just dropped.
Yeah, there's so many people talking about how much money they made off Giannis, but for every Giannis, there's like 50 players. It's like, oh, I lost
Exactly.
a ton on all this guy.
Oh my! I feel like I'm getting that point in the hobby where I've been in it long enough where I can look back at some of the cards I used to own and just disgust of like, oh my god, I moved that for like so cheap, like National Treasures, Giannis autos that I had. That I'm just like, oh, I'm sick to my stomach for moving. Some of the Currys and like I said, me and my friends, we back in 2012, 2013, we had like Anthony Davis cards that would probably be worth like $10,000-$15,000 now.
Yeah. Well, hindsight's always 2020, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else, dude?
No, I can. That's about it. I think Anthony Davis is a good buy right now. I know a couple people who are stocking up on his stuff. I'm trying to hoard as much of like Immaculates and there's a bunch of nice Anthony Davis. This is my favorite one I have. It's a Crown Royale #5 auto on card.
Dang, that's a rookie.
Yeah, it's a rookie. I got this kind of cheap, but I really love this card, and I think it's a huge card going into the future. I'm trying to save up for National Treasures RPA. They're so cheap right now if you think about how good of a player he is compared to like everyone else's who's big National Treasures RPA.
So you think he'll go into a big team and a new team and succeed there?
I don't know about succeed, but I think his stuff, people are going to start realizing like, wow, his stuff is too cheap. Especially if you look at like Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis. If I had to invest in like any basketball cards going in the future, it would be their 2 National Treasures RPA. They're too cheap right now. If you look at like Anthony Davis's, what do they bring, like $3,000 or so? $3,500 raw, and Klay Thompson's practically less than 1,000. I gotta guess.
Doncic sold last night for 8,500.
Oh my god! See, like, yeah, that just blows my mind. I don't get it.
That one will come down. So
yeah, they always do.
Any other last cards you want to show off before we cut it?
No, that's about it. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the time. This was fun.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
See you at National.
I can't go.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, I so wish I could. I'll be going to the Atlantic City one. I'll be 21 then.
Oh, there we go. All right, well, we'll see you then.
See you, Josh.